All right, hello class. Welcome to the Shakespearean Sonnets presentation with one non-traditional sonnet showing up at the end. We're going to take a quiz on this tomorrow, so think maybe 4 or 5 multiple choice questions, one question with a short answer where you got to write me a couple sentences about the content of your poem, what it has to say, how it says it, and then a sonnet dissection. So you'll get a new sonnet, you'll have to show me all the different pieces, and we're going to cover that in this video. So here's the contents. You can look at this if you need to, pause if you need to, but we're going to look at some background, 3 rules, the structure of each quatrain and the rhyming couplet. We're going to look at one sonnet closely and its argument, quote unquote. We're going to wrap up. So what does all this stuff allow sonnets to do according to the literature? We're going to look at a modern day sonnet, and I'm going to end with a challenge, something you have to do and turn in. Okay? All right. For background, there's one part of this that I want to focus on. So typically, Shakespearean sonnets are love poems in some kind of way. And what do they do? So there's this idea in literature that pieces of writing, they do something. They do some kind of work. So what does a Shakespearean sonnet do? It philosophizes. It celebrates. It attacks. It pleads. It expresses pain. It expresses longing. And it expresses despair. Okay? So it does all of these things. There are some rules, okay? So there are 3 rules of the Shakespearean sonnet. The 3 rules are as follows. Number 1, a Shakespearean sonnet needs to have 14 lines, okay? Number 2, a Shakespearean sonnet must be written in iambic pentameter. We haven't done this in class. We've looked at syllables, but there's 10 syllables in a line of poetry for a Shakespearean sonnet, and it classically follows this pattern. Da 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 da. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Da 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 da. So that's an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable, okay? And that pattern, da-da, that's called an iamb, I-A-M-B, and there's 5 of them in a line of poetry. So 10 syllables, iambs are 2 syllables, and there's 5 of them, iambic pentameter, in a line of poetry. Okay. The last rule, it must be written in a standard rhyme scheme like A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and G, G. So if we look at this poem right here on the side, day and May rhyme with each other. So there's our 2 A rhymes. And temperate and date is a slant rhyme, not perfect, but they rhyme with each other. So there's our B rhymes. So A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. C and D, a perfect rhyme. There's our rhyming couplet at the end, right? Okay, so what does each quatrain do, and what does the last rhyming couplet do? So now we're going to look at the content of the poem, or what Timpain and Watts, these Shakespearean scholars, call the argument of the poem. Okay. All right, so here's the argument. In the first quatrain, and let me go ahead and mark that for you, so I'll go and use red. And let's mark the second quatrain. So I'm counting down 4 lines. I'm going to count down another 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to mark the third quatrain, and then we have our rhyming couplet at the bottom. So we have all the pieces identified. You're going to do this tomorrow. So the first quatrain is an exposition of the main theme or main metaphor. So exposition means it's introducing something, it's showing something off. So the main idea of the poem and what the metaphor is going to be that runs through the poem. So that metaphor, that metaphysical conceit, is going to somehow be incorporated and woven, embedded throughout the whole poem. Okay, so right here we have, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So we know it's usually a love poem. He is comparing the object of his love to a summer's day. So we know that the main theme is going to be this guy or this lady is beautiful like a summer's day, right? And we know the main metaphor, we're making a comparison to nature and the beauty of a summer's day. So we have both of that right in the first line. Okay, the second quatrain gives us a theme and metaphor extended or complicated, and often some imaginative example is given. So he's talking about this summer's day, and he's comparing the beauty of this person to a summer's day, which he thinks is quite beautiful. And then he goes into the second quatrain, and he's going to talk about some problems with a summer's day. And in the last two lines, lines 7 and 8, we're going to look at the real problem with a summer's day. When we're looking at this person's beauty, this object of Shakespeare's affection, and we're looking at this person's beauty, here's where a summer's day falls short of this person's beauty. And every fair from fair sometime decline. Summer ends by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed, right? So it's just the rule of nature. A summer's day is going to come to an end. And there's his extended example, right? The problem with summer is that it comes to an end. And the problem with people who are beautiful is that that beauty fades, right? They get older, they get wrinkles, all that kind of stuff, right? So that leads us to the third quatrain. If you guys can remember this word, it's extra credit tomorrow, but it's peripeteia. You got to spell it right. Peripeteia. Peripeteia. It's an Italian word. This is our literary term for the thematic turn, okay, a twist or conflict, often introduced by, but very often leading off the 9th line. So in that 9th line, right under that red line, we have by thy eternal summer shall not fade. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. So unlike a summer's day, this person's beauty is not going to fade. Let me tell you why. This person's beauty is immortal. It's greater than a summer's day. And let me tell you why, right? So let's see what Shakespeare has to say, okay? He says in that last line, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest, okay? So something about eternal lines. This one's interesting. So lines don't normally appear in nature. They don't normally appear in summer, but they do appear in poetry. So for me, here's where the real turn happens. I might argue that the real turn happens right here at the end of line 12, because he's bringing in a new piece to this metaphor. He's moving from summer to something with lines, probably poetry, right? So finally we have 4, the rhyming couplet, which summarizes and leaves the reader with a new concluding image. It gives us the universal truth, right? The conclusion. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this poem, and this gives life to thee. This poem gives life to thee. So unlike natural beauty, which fades, I have captured your beauty in this poem. I have talked about your beauty in this poem, and as long as there's people to read this poem and see this poem, your beauty is going to remain eternal. I've captured it here, right? And so Shakespeare says, hey, you're welcome. I captured it in a poem. I got you, boo, right? Okay, so there's his arguments, and we've tracked from the rules of the argument on the right-hand side of the screen to actually looking at how this argument plays out in a typical sonnet. And here's one of his love sonnets, typical, right? Okay, if you want a little more information on it, read the little synopsis at the bottom left. You might be surprised to find out he is writing about a young man, not a lady. And if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can click that link and it'll take you right there, okay? All right, so we looked very closely at this, and we'll take a look at this question in just a minute. Okay, so a Shakespearean sonnet wrap-up. So there's 2 things that the literature claims happens when you look at a sonnet like this, okay? So let me go ahead and highlight it for you. If you follow the rules, and if you follow kind of the structure of the argument, and that looks kind of bad, you end up with a poem that is complex, not shallow, right? It's a complex poem. It's a complex exploration of this theme, whether it's a love poem, complaining or lamenting or expressing despair, whatever it might be, and it's well organized. And it's organized in a way that people understand, right, back then. And so And so he can use people's expectations and knowledge of how a sonnet is supposed to work to help them understand him and understand him quickly. And that is the beauty of the sonnet, especially in Renaissance England. Okay? All right. So, moving on, modern day sonnets. This sonnet is going to break the rules of the argument, but it's going to follow the 3 rules that we talked about before. So 14 lines, conventional rhyme scheme, and iambic pentameter, right? By the way, these are all horror movie titles. Some of them campy, some of them actual horror movies, right? So I'm just going to read the first quatrain for you. Frankenstein, Godzilla, the Blob, Phantom of the Opera, the Wolfman, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Children of the Damned, them Queens of Outer Space, Creature from the Black. And of course, if you read with enjambment, which means there's no period or comma at the end, so you read down to the next stanza, it would be Creature from the Black Lagoon. But that's a lesson for another time, okay? So let's look at this thing. Let's count together. Frankenstein, Godzilla, the Blob, Phantom. 10 syllables, okay? 10 syllables. So he's following syllables. He's following iambic pentameter. Maybe not the stress, right? So not da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but he's got the 10 syllables. Let's see if he has the rhymes. Phantom, them. So close, a slant rhyme, both ending with M, very close. Back, black, he's got it. He's got his B. Mum, from, okay? Die, fly, good. Let's see his EF. Invisible, incredible. Yes, there's his E. And hand, there's his F. King, thing, there's his G. So he's following the rhyme scheme. So he's got iambic pentameter. He's got the rhyme scheme. What he doesn't have is the turn on line 9. He's sticking with the same kind of thing. Bride of Frankenstein, the Invisible Man. Same kind of thing. So no thematic turn. And what he doesn't have is any sense of argument, right? So there's no main metaphor. There's no main idea that's easy to discern. It's just titles of movies. He's playing around. He's having fun. He's profaning a classic form of poetry. He's having fun with it. And American poets, they love to do this, right? Oh, you think sonnets are perfect and beautiful? I'm going to mess it up for you. That's an American poet, all right? Okay, so we've seen Shakespearean sonnets. We've gone over the 3 rules. We've gone over the parts of the argument within each of the 3 quatrains and the rhyming couplets. We've talked about what following these rules and these arguments do for a poem, right? Complex, not simplistic, and well organized, okay? These are the benefits. We've looked at a modern day poet, the way that a modern day sonnet, the way David Trinidad sticks to the rules and yet subverts and breaks a lot of the rules too, right? And so now, and we answered this question, believe it or not. And so now I have a challenge for you guys. Click this link or follow the link on Google Classroom and write me your own sonnet. You can be as deep or as beautiful as you want to be with it, like a Shakespearean sonnet, or you can write me a non-traditional modern day sonnet the way that David Trinidad did. Maybe do titles of cereals or names of your family or whatever you want to do, right? But you can do either one. Just stick to the 3 rules. 14 lines, traditional rhyme scheme, and iambic pentameter. And the content, the subject of your sonnet can be whatever you want it to be. To make this thing look best, you'll want to put it on a Google document and attach it once you're inside the Padlet. But you can write it inside the Padlet too. Okay, the spacing's a little bit weird, but I'll know. Okay, all right, so hey, that's it. I think you guys are ready for the quiz tomorrow. My hint to you guys, this is due by Friday. If you write a sonnet today and you look at those rules, you know, it's fresh in your head, you're going to be ready for the quiz tomorrow because you're going to have written it, you're going to have looked at the structure, you're going to understand it much better than you can just by listening to me talking about it. So what I'm telling you, write that sonnet if you want to pass that quiz tomorrow with a perfect score. All right, guys, hey, thanks for listening, and bye.